Hello, hello, hello. Hey,
Hello.
hello. How are you?
I'm well, babe. How you doing? Hold on, let me get this together here. It's like I was square and then
When it cuts you, it
exactly
changes. Yeah,
and
because
consider.
I feel like you just see the top of my head now. Are you frozen?
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
I don't hear the music.
Now I'm about to hit you with it. Am I light enough for you?
You're not in the.
How's my light?
You're good.
Yeah.
I know you like it brighter, like mine right now, but I think you're good.
Okay. Let's see if I say share video. Here, do this, babe.
What?
So, your day was good today?
What did you say?
I said, how was your day?
Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
Finishing out Women's History Month with my Black Girl Magic mug.
Very nice. Hey, Brittany, got the comics. Oh man, I was supposed to bring them in with me here. Um,
It's okay.
here we go. There they are. So the kids aren't here yet, but when they come home, I will be reading them their first comic book. Awesome. So,
Hello,
hello,
I'm Sam,
and I'm Sam.
and we're the Sams.
We are the Sams. And welcome
Welcome,
to
welcome to
Sam's
Sam
Talk.
Talk.
Yeah. So this is our second episode. We're
Yes, and I
excited.
promise to save it this time. I
Right,
worked out
right,
the
right.
technical difficulties,
That's
so
right.
we're going to have record of it happening.
No doubt. So tonight we're talking about the Oscars, right? And I'll admit, right? So it may have been a bit of a teaser because we're more probably going to talk about just sort of like our feelings around what we saw as opposed to an opinion. But we think that we have another conversation we want to dive into that I think is appropriate based off of sort of like, you know, what went down. But the Oscars. So, you know, how did I feel when I saw it, right? So I will first start by saying it was like kind of a jarring, shocking kind of scene. And, you know, Samantha and I, we went and saw Will Smith on his tour, his
Yeah.
autobiography tour, Will, at the Met. And, you know, because of it, it's like, you know, when you hear a person who was as transparent as he was that night, really kind of sharing and diving into like a lot of circumstances that he's had in his life, I couldn't help but like in those moments on Sunday, kind of like think about what he shared that night. You know what I'm saying, Sam? Like there were things that kind of flashed around the conversation that he had that night. And you know, one of the things that he talked about was, you know, his relationship with his father, Daddy O, but more importantly, sort of like him referring to himself as a coward because of inaction. That's how he phrased it. When he was 9 years old, you know, his mother was, you know, being abused by his father, and he felt there was an opportunity to step in, and he did not. And it was
Right.
something that really shaped him, that inaction in that moment. And so, you know, I say all that to say just that, you know, in watching what happened on Sunday, I personally could not help but thinking about what he shared that night, you know, and even down to, you know, the component where, you know, the joke was told. And again, it was a joke Chris Rock told that wasn't approved by the Oscar, you know, it was like an off the cuff, you know, joke. And, you know, the camera sees Will laughing at it originally, and then you can also see the dissatisfaction from Jada's face. You know, everyone is sort of assuming like the glance or whatever, but like I've never seen a video of it. You know, it's like what they saw was Jada or Will originally laughing and like the dissatisfaction from Jada. And everyone is assuming that, you know, he observed that as well and his whole disposition changed. And, you know, I thought about, again, sort of like the inaction and how he talked about, you know, with his father, it was like with his mother who he loved so dearly, he did not step in to defend her in that moment. And I felt there was a part of me that felt like maybe that was kind of triggered that night where he felt, wow, you know, I see this is the person I loved and this is where they are in this moment. And maybe there was an opportunity to take action.
Right.
So
And also with, you know, with his book and also going to the Met to see him and share, you know, verbally about this trauma and pain, you know, he's been holding on since a child, like he was a child, he was 9, you know, of this, you know, and he's put it in action to protect, you
right.
know, his mother, like, you know, um, she was his everything at that time. So, but I know you got to share how you felt.
Sure.
So I didn't see it live. I woke up to everything the next day, didn't believe it at first. And I feel like, you know, okay, we're what, 5 days past, and I'm still like, I am shocked. Like, I'm still shocked at every piece of what happened. Like, you
Gotcha.
know,
Gotcha.
so,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah,
that's kind of like, you know, our take on the night itself. But since then, I have been engaged in many a conversation about the incident since that point. You know, I kind of stumbled into Clubhouse, and you know that was pretty lively. And I've had
yeah,
discussions with friends, and you know, I asked Sam if it was cool for me to kind of kick things off tonight because I really found myself in a space that was kind of, I felt it was strange, right? Because, you know, Samantha, and she can attest to this, like she knows that I will do anything and everything in my power to defend my family, you know, her and my family. Like she knows that about me. And at the same time, I'm in these conversations, discussions where I'm hearing so much passion about, you know, Will's response in a way that like, in a way, that I had trouble reconciling why I didn't automatically think that, you know, or just in terms of like different actions someone should take in defense of their woman, I think is really where the conversation went. And
Right.
so,
'Cause a lot of it is like protecting
right,
Black women
right,
is the
right, right.
big piece
And
that came from.
exactly right. And so it was like, it's within that context that I was thinking like, well, wait a minute, I'm a husband, I'm a father of a daughter. Like I'll do everything to protect, women, even in my life, like my mother, my sister, etc. And yet, and still, I feel like there are certain things that I don't immediately look at the same way. And I was challenged by that, like I was really wrestling with like, man, why am I setting limitations in terms of what I would do to protect, where it seems like others like, no, by any means necessary. But then so then I started thinking about our vows, right? And so I wanted to, if it's cool with you, I was going to kind of touch into something I shared in our vows. It's not going to be everything, it's just going to be
It's public
paraphrasing.
knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. But before Sam and I got married, we studied ants, right? And in studying ants, it was kind of cool, like
It was interesting.
it was really interesting. But what's fascinating about ants is that they have the capability of creating their own atmosphere within their colony. So it's like within an ant colony, like each ant colony has its unique atmosphere based off whatever the needs are for their environment to thrive. And I thought that was really cool. And so I'm just going to paraphrase a bit of my vows, but I told Samantha, that like I vowed to commit to creating an atmosphere in our home, that allows her to be her best self for her and our family. Like in terms of what we are doing together, I just wanted to create the best. I vowed to create the best atmosphere in our home for her to do that. And so, in thinking about my vows, it's like, I know that protection is absolutely a huge component of that. But my presence is also part of that. And so I know that there are decisions that I make as a married man that I didn't make as a single man because of my obligations or responsibility to my family. And I consider that all protection. So Sam, tonight,
I think we're talking about protection.
I think we're talking about protection, but I also think some of the conversation might actually be about retaliation, right? And I think that those are two separate things, but it's interesting because it's like I kind of had like an aha moment, and honestly, it helped me because I realized like, whoa, wait a minute, I get it now. Like I felt like everybody with wires were crossed or had been crossed and are continuing to be crossed because everyone is looking at it as, hey, this is what protection is. And so for some people that don't ascribe to that concept of protection, it's like I'm finding all these rubs in all these conversations. But then it hit me. I was like, well, you know what? Protection is one thing, but retaliation actually is something a little bit different. And maybe that's part of like the undercurrent in these conversations that's not being included, right? So I'm going to, and so Sam, with that, I was going to offer a definition, but, I wanted to, get your take on that in terms of retaliation versus protection.
So, again, I agree with you. There's a difference. And I feel as though you can protect and there are levels of protection where being physical is not a part. You don't have to be physical to feel protected, in certain situations or environments. And like, I wholeheartedly agree with you, like, being married to you. I feel as though you protect your household, you protect us, you protect your children. And so I see where there is a correlation where
Right.
people are like, oh, he just went fisticuffs. He protected me. But that is not the only form of protection for someone to, become visible.
Agreed. And so, I mean, that's a good point, but I think, I'm glad I'm not trying to toot myself on horn, but I'm telling y'all, like, I was really challenged with the thought that like I had a limitation to the level of protection I would go with or go through for my family. Like I was bothered by that internally, like, man, am I really limiting where like the spaces I would go, and I feel like there's nothing I wouldn't do to protect my family, and I personally believe like I'm capable of doing that within the confines of the law, right? And I got a license, you know what I'm saying? So you understand what I'm saying? But I feel like the law will afford me the opportunity to fully protect my family, you know? And yet, in some of the conversations I was having, what people were describing, I'm thinking like, well, wait a minute, that what you're actually talking about isn't really covered in the law. Like now you're risking a scenario where maybe I don't come home, you know, like maybe I'm put in a position where law enforcement is involved, and you know, maybe I have to spend it overnight. Like to me now, I've compromised my ability to protect my family if I am not physically home, or because I put myself in a kind of space. Again, that is outside of the law, right? Or you know, there are fines sometimes associated with that kind of conduct. So it's like, man, am I willing to like sacrifice my resources from my home because I wanted to protect my family in a way that wasn't covered, you know, in terms of the bounds of the law? But
or the big one, you don't come home. Yeah. Like, I mean, you're talking about fines, you're talking about this. Right now, we're in a different era. And just words sometimes, unfortunately, people are not coming home.
Right.
So
again, trust me, I'm not saying don't stay down for my family. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But I am saying that the decisions that I make today, I'm very conscious of my obligation and commitment to protect. And that's why I keep kind of keying in on the word protection, because I feel like that's the large conversation about like, what does it look like to protect women, you know, protect Black women specifically in terms of the conversation. And to me, it's like, I will do anything for that. But I think in doing anything, I know that, well, I say anything, but I say anything within the laws in terms of protection, right? But I feel like the law affords me the maximum ability to do that, right? But when we think about retaliation, but retaliation is something different. And I'm not saying it's justified or not justified, but I think we kind of have to, you know, decouple those concepts in order to really kind of like think about what can occur, right, in defense of someone you love. So I'll start with just the definition: protection. Protection is a person or thing that prevents someone or something from suffering harm or injury. So that's what protection is. A person or thing that prevents someone or something from suffering harm or injury. Protection.
Right.
Retaliation. The act of harming someone because they have harmed oneself, or revenge. So again, retaliation. The act of harming someone because they have harmed oneself or revenge, right? And so, you know, our relationship, right? Like, I'm not saying that there's no space for retaliation. I'm not saying that. Like, now, in terms of how I conduct myself, it's going to be, you know, far and few between where I'm like really kind of putting myself out there in a retaliatory kind of mode. Like, you know, I personally don't operate that way per se, but like I know that there are spaces for retaliation theoretically, right? Like, you know, if someone harmed me, then, you know, revenge is revenge, right? And sometimes I also understand, you know, retaliating on behalf of others, you know, so it's like, it's not that I don't get that. And so I guess I wanted to open it up to you, Sam. Like, you know, how do you feel about, like, you know, in a relationship and someone is retaliating or wanting to see retaliation on your behalf, or, you know, are you comfortable with it? Are you not comfortable with it? Like, where do you fall? Now, this is open up to the group too. Like, where do you all fall with retaliation as a concept?
Okay, so now that I'm mature, okay, so it's funny. Even like younger, I've never been that person in a relationship where it's like, oh, to show your manliness, for me to feel protected, I need you to be puffed out and aggressive or all the time. Like, yeah, no. But what I do, like, I want to feel protected. So I feel as though, like, you know, if a situation was to happen, you know, if it's verbal, I go at it as you do what's happening. So if it's verbal, you go back
Yep.
verbal, or I mean, if it's just nonsense, you kind of, I'm just like a walk away type sometimes. But sometimes, but I'm learning, I'm telling you, maturing kind of thing. Where it's just like all that is unnecessary sometimes, because it's just like I know what I have, what I'll be what risking, or even like, okay, so we're married, we're together. So it's like, what will you be risking for this nonsense? But again, if the situation calls for something else, maybe possibly for it to be physical or whatever, I just feel like you don't know until you're in the situation.
Right.
But to start off, I'm all for walking away. You know, it's not worth it. Whatever the squabble, whatever they're saying, hurt me personally. And I know there are people out there that don't feel the same way. I just feel like there are ways I want the men in my life or my husband, things like, to protect me and the women in their lives.
The other
And
men are her brother and her father. Just for the record,
right.
when she said the men in her lives, she meant her brother and her husband.
They know what I'm talking about. But anyway, okay, anywho, all right. I just feel like I don't need you to show me that you are my protector by pop it off kind of thing. Or I just feel like you need to assess the situation, however it happens or goes, like.
So I'll give you analogies, right? Because
Okay.
I'm not a pop off person, right? So I get that, but it's like that's not me anyway. However, like, okay, you know that there are times where like I can be animated, right? Like, and especially when it comes to sports, I've engaged in sports conflicts where it's like, hey, is everything okay here? You know what I mean? Where
Right.
some people may
Here's
not,
the children.
right, if everything's all right, because like I can be pretty, I can go there at times, and so, I know even in those moments, you have protected me. It just like tell me to like, hey, kind of pulling my shirt back a little bit, like, yo, cool,
Right.
cool. But let's say, like, even a scenario where let's say something happened and someone said something disparaging to you in my presence, right? Like, I would check it, no doubt about
Right.
it, because it's like I'm not. Even in protection, pride is also part of the human experience or whatever, and so it's like, as protective as I am, I am not. I don't know if I'm just willing to walk through life in a world where like people are just going to be disrespectful to my wife in my presence. Like, that's something
Right.
that I would just wrestle with, even knowing that like my primary role is to protect, right, and defend. So to me, like, I would be defending you if someone were to say something disparaging, and hope that I can get them to address and atone for whatever the statement is. At the same time, I would be conscious of how it is or isn't escalating, right? Because again, my main objective is still to protect and defend. And so if there's a point in that interaction where I realize like, okay, I'm dealing with a person who's just always just going to keep going up, then it's like at some point I'll make a decision like it's not worth it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to be G about this. If this person, wants to understand where I'm coming from, you know what I mean? Fine. But if not, if they're just choosing not to, some people just don't. Some people just about it just to be about it. And I'm not
Right.
one to deal in foolishness that way, because again, my primary objective is to protect and defend, right? And
And
so,
some people like that. Some people
right,
like
right,
that, like,
yeah,
yeah. And it's funny because you were like, oh, if someone said something disparaging in front, like, in front of you. And my first thought was like, oh, well, now you got to break us up, because I just feel like, I'm also not one to just sit and be like, Like, I don't know, like, where that come from kind of thing, whatever, whatever. But no, again, you are not the pop off type, but I do know, like, you aren't for the foolishness. So, you would stand up and do what you're supposed to do
Right.
as, like, my partner. But yes, we can ask the audience here.
Right. And again, and I think the question about retaliation, I think it's an interesting one, right? Because, what I've gathered from like a lot of the talks that I was in had to do with sort of a lot of historical events that again, our intent today was not to like hone in so much on Sunday, because everyone has like an opinion about what they would or wouldn't have done on Sunday. But in terms of like just extrapolating some of the conversations, it seemed to be what I felt was that, like, because of historical events, it was almost like a build up as to why, this created this reaction. And so to me, it's like, well, again, well, did, like, again, so at that point, it's like, okay, so it's not really protection, but I think retaliation absolutely is applicable to what is occurring. So now the question is, like, is there space for that? You know what I mean? Like, how does one navigate, like, what's appropriate retaliation on behalf of somebody else? And again, and you all want to sort of comment on that, like, about, retaliation, like, is that part of the contract in a relationship where it's like, hey, not only am I expecting you to defend me and protect me, but I am also have an expectation that you will retaliate on my behalf. Is that part of sort of the expectation? I mean, for us, because we've never had a conversation about like retaliating for each other. Like, this is kind of new. So now we can talk about this out loud.
Conversation. I feel like we've never had a conversation, but we know you know me. So I feel like, yes, I feel like this big thing came out, of protecting Black women. But also, like, with the conversation we're having, protecting each other. And I hope, like, who you marry, who you're with. And I feel like they're like me and you, I feel like, I'm going to protect you, look out for you. I mean, when you leave and go out, like, with your friends or whatever, I'm like, be safe, stay safe, have fun, kind of thing, because there is so many variables out there that something can happen. But if we're in a situation, I just, like, hope that you know me, and I would be in there with you, like, I got your back, kind of thing. I'm going to look out for you. I'm not saying, like, I'm going to protect you, like, but I would be in there with you, like.
I mean, if we found ourselves in a situation, it's something that we couldn't avoid, right? Like that's how we would find ourselves in a situation. It'd be an unavoidable thing, and at that point, all bets are off. So I already know that about, like, that's where we're at. But I mean more in terms of, like, being proactive, right? Where it's like, hey, this person,
we have someone that requested to be in our live.
Awesome.
All right, let's see.
Let's do it.
Go live. Hopefully it works. Our first
guest.
Right. So you go live.
And again, folks, this is the first time we're doing this, so bear with me.
Okay, so Sam, so it's Samantha Rucker.
Okay.
Please. All right, let me see. Hold on. Okay, accept. Okay. I feel like Zoom is so much easier.
Okay. It'd be great if we can get Sam on, because getting Sam on as our first guest would be perfect. It's still Sam's talk.
Right.
Sam's.
Do you see her? Like,
bro, come on in, bro. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have. This is hey, Drew. You're more the pro on this, man. So I guess I should set the stage. This is kind of the Oscars, but we're really talking about protection versus retaliation. Feel free to join. Samantha is our producer.
So I went to hit accept, and it says there's nobody there.
Okay. Well, see, I think Drew wants to try.
You're still there. Hold on here. Maybe I could request her. Hold on.
Well, no. Don't. No.
Oh, okay.
But I think if Samantha wants to join, let her attempt it again. I don't know if if unless it's
Okay.
simple request. Drew, if you want to join, do you see Drew trying to join? We'd love to have you on, brother. Again, the conversation we're talking about sort of protection versus retaliation. The part of the contract. Okay, so she wasn't trying to join.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, Samantha
Okay.
wasn't trying to join. There we go. Good brother.
Yo, I'm
Yo,
coming. I'm coming.
happening, man.
Grab my little stand.
Welcome to Sam's Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for
Our
having
first
me.
guest.
Yeah, our first guest.
Mhm.
First
So
live guest.
we're talking protection versus retaliation.
First live guest, because I still haven't come to dinner.
Whose fault is that?
Right. Maybe by the fourth, fifth invitation.
So he just for the folks that don't know, we have an I'll Have What I'm Having dinner series. And if you're interested in attending that, you can DM us and we can invite you to one of our upcoming dinners.
Boom. Okay, so Samantha, that's a great comment. She said, "Uh-oh, I don't want to lose it." You see it?
The question is, do you believe in retaliation?
Right. Because she wrote up above, she was like, she doesn't think it's like automatically part of the contract in a relationship.
Oh,
Like,
I see
yeah.
it.
Okay.
I didn't realize. Oh, I'm sorry. She didn't realize she was on camera. What I want to say is that I don't think that the part of the contract is retaliation unless that's what you believe in. The question is, do you believe in retaliation?
Agreed. Okay, so what we could start it there. Like,
Okay, I can answer.
okay.
I believe if it so calls for, not for everything, And I know Sam talked a lot about the law. I don't know about none of that. I'm saying it depends.
It depends.
But it has to be very high.
Okay.
Like egregious.
Okay.
But for words, it's all right.
But retaliate, you can also retaliate with words. So I'm saying, like, retaliation is retaliation. It doesn't define what measure you're taking in retaliating. So, like, if I were to argue back and forth, like, an argument is theoretically kind of a retaliation. Like, if somebody says something about you and I went back and I responded on your behalf, right? Where it's like you're not in a scenario where it's like you are being threatened, but it's like, somebody wants to go in, so I'm a retaliate on like, I'm just saying, like, that theoretically is also retaliation. However, by definition, it did say the word harm. But you can harm with words.
Okay,
so
yes, you
retaliation
can.
is the act of harming someone because they have harmed oneself. So let's give Drew maybe an opportunity to kind of jump in on that one.
Go on, Drew.
I believe that you have a responsibility to display retaliation at its highest level, depending on how you feel it should be given. And I'm really serious about that. So, I had a situation where we went to go visit a friend. We went to a party, and because of and that's the way that I am. Whether it's especially with my wife and my kids, but even with my family members, I'm going to have their back, and I'm going to be aggressive in my approach to defending or having their back, right? So we went to a party, and some dude, like, I was downstairs with the host's husband. We were smoking a cigar, and then a
Drew,
friend of
we
mine
only
came
got
down.
a half hour.
So our
Okay, no, I'll cut my story.
Okay.
It's cut.
No, I
believe in retaliation.
You believe in retaliation?
Okay. Go on, tell the scenario.
No.
Go on.
He answered the question. He believes in retaliation. All right. So do you believe in retaliation that goes outside the bounds of the law?
No. I mean, like burn somebody's house down or something?
What in the world? Now, again,
Talking about murder?
That is also illegal, but I mean, there's a whole lot that.
You talking about what, murder?
Oh my God. I'm talking about anything outside the bounds of the law in terms of retaliation. I mean, I'm not.
Okay.
Beyond physical assault?
Quinn Dowles says, I just feel like protect yours at all costs. That's all you got. Prayerfully, it does not escalate to hands, but hey, it happens.
In protection.
It happens.
You talking about, but she's talking about protection. So
Right.
Quinn Dawes, in terms of retaliation, do you have the same stance, or is that like specific to protection? And I'm just curious because I think we like there is a distinction.
So here's the thing: if a dude smacks my wife, right, and I find out about it, once she's home and tells me what happens, it's no longer protection.
Right.
Right. It's retaliation.
Right.
So whether I have a right to retaliate or not, it's going to happen. And I feel like I have a right as a man and as a husband. I don't know about the law when it comes to that, but I have a right as a man and a husband to retaliate.
So let me ask you something. As a man and a husband and a father, should you know the law before you retaliate?
Yeah, I mean, you should know what's going to put you in prison or not.
That's all. Because you're saying you don't know the law, but I have the right to retaliate. But I'm saying not knowing doesn't absolve you, right? So you also answered, yeah, I should know. I'm just saying that, like, you also just said you should know the law before you retaliate. Not saying that you don't have a right to, but because you are also a husband and father, it's in your best interest to know the law before you retaliate, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So Michael Morrow says retaliation.
I'm going to know how to get caught or not.
Retaliation is poor people talk. And then Sunkiss 216 says, there's a lot more before we get to arson, Drew.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was something. Right there.
Sammy Thomas Rucker says physical is outside the bounds of the law. So if you get physical, it's outside the bounds of the law.
I can tell you for sure, if a dude smacks my wife, I'm going to break the law.
Got it. Understood.
Yeah.
But right. So you are knowingly doing that. Like that's
I'm knowingly doing that.
Got it.
So Quinn Dow says there is definitely a distinction, but I'm with Drew on this one. Michael Morrow, so if you get locked up and she no longer has you to defend her, then what? That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like where is he smacking her? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I'm just
not that he has to answer that, but I'm just saying, like, I hear Drew, and yes, that is the first primal reaction. Not saying it shouldn't be, but then it's just like, okay, that where are we going to keep going with this? Like, did he smack her on her behind? Did he smack her in her face? What happened? Who was there? How did he walk away?
Would you consider pressing charges as retaliation?
I don't think so. We already went to arson.
No, I'm not.
No, he just asked a question. He didn't say that. Would you consider pressing charges as a form of retaliation?
I mean, right now, asking me outside of that situation, sure.
Okay, because again, it's like.
But in that moment, I don't know if I'm going to be thinking about.
Right.
Well, let me just go to the police.
So then, Eva T. Life, what is the goal of retaliation?
because you gotta realize when it comes to Will Smith, he lost it. He lost his cool. He lost his temper. I don't think it wasn't that premeditated, right? So because his reaction to his wife, to feel like his wife was disrespected, is what he did. Know what I mean, and to think that nobody will ever lose their cool or lose their temper, even if it's for the right reasons, is I think
It's
it's
unrealistic.
not realistic.
But who
It's not
said that?
realistic.
No one here said anything that no one would ever lose their cool. Like that. I'm
Right.
just
No,
saying.
no, no.
I,
I'm
but
saying that has been an ongoing. It's been part of the larger ongoing discussion.
not this discussion, because I think the distinction is about protection versus retaliation. Like that, he retaliated even in losing his cool. I'm saying that like I'm just saying that all the conversations I've had since Sunday have only been about protection. I'm thinking like, man, this is strange because I'm all about protection, and yet there are lines I'm drawing. So it's like, what is it about me that is unwilling to do certain things in the name of protection? And as I kept thinking about it, I was like, wait a minute. We're not talking about protection. We're actually talking about retaliation. They're very different concepts, but they merge in a way where it's like it seems like one conversation, but it's not. That's all I'm saying. So like so even him being angry, whatever, I I'm just saying that like even in a space for retaliation, like the vows I made with Samantha, I am very conscious of being able to come home every day, like point blank period. Like that is something that even Sam said, if I go out without her and I'm out, I'm conscious of what I'm doing that would preclude me from being able to come home. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not willing to just get into it with somebody just because even if they came at me, like I'll deal with it until I'm not going to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not willing to take everything all the way there because I have an obligation at home. You know what I'm saying? So in that same vein, that guides me. And even if there was a scenario where like, if I'm not physically there where someone assaults Samantha, where it's like net self-defense, if I can't put it under self-defense, I will be conscious in terms of what my reaction would be, because if I'm pulled away from my family because I have to go to jail and or resources because of fines or whatever is also stripped from my family, it's like in my mind it's like there was a different decision I could have made. Like that to me doesn't make us whole. You know, like there was something else I could have done that didn't sacrifice more from me and also leave her uncovered for any space of time. You know what I'm saying? So I guess I'm just saying it that way. It's like in my effort to protect at all times, all protection also means being present for me. You know, so it's like that's the line that I am navigating. It's like to protect at all costs and remain present.
Would you
So,
confront someone who assaulted your wife?
Yes.
All right.
so Sammy Thomas Rucker says, goal of retaliation is to teach people how to treat you, and some people are professors. ... I may be people.
Me too.
And here's the interesting thing, because you know, in the conversations I was having about, you know, well, you know, what else could, and again, it's like my intent really isn't to put myself in somebody else's shoes in terms of actions they could or couldn't have taken. I really didn't want to take it there, but so I won't. I won't. I won't. I won't, because I just think that there are enough people, you know, doing that. I'd rather kind of keep things home. So I'll keep it to you and I.
Right, because that's a huge onion, and there's so many, like
Right.
we could be talking about it for hours.
Right. Right. Because it's like you never know how you'll react to someone else's shoes. You're not that person, you know. But I know, you know, it's for me in
Right,
my
but and
house.
that's the same thing. That's the same thing for, like, relationships. Again, like I mentioned before, you have relationships where they
Expectation.
come out the house ready to buck. Like
But
that is their thing. But then you have, like, we're all different. Everybody
now,
We're all
takes,
if they
different.
come out the house ready to buck, you mean as in retaliation? I don't know what you mean by that.
like, there are people, I don't know what you want to call it. Like there are some people, men or women, where you like
You can't tell them what happened because they're gonna go to the next.
Right. Like, yeah, like they're just ready.
So that's also a level of
And
protection, right?
yeah,
So it's like
and I
you're
mean,
protecting them from themselves in that moment because you know if I tell my spouse this, they're going to take it in a way where they are not going to come home.
listen. So the situation I was sharing earlier, somebody took food off my wife's plate and started playing with her hair, right?
Wait, what?
And when I was at my people's house, I was
They took
downstairs
food
smoking a
off her
cigar with the
plate
host. The guy
and
took
touched
some
her
food off
hair.
her plate and started playing with her hair, right? And when she said to stop, he didn't stop right away. So another person's boyfriend, confronted him, right? And when they relayed the situation to me, they told me that it happened to somebody else. Everybody in the house. I didn't find out until
Yo,
months
good for
later.
them.
I didn't find out until months later,
Good for
and
them. Whoever
and
they
I was
were, I'm
and I
glad.
was heated.
Yo,
And you
whoever
guys,
the boyfriend was that confronted on your behalf, I'll give him a pound. And
No, that's my guy. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying because they know you enough to protect you from that situation. Now, whether that's right or wrong, like I'm just saying, I know my brother as well, and I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying, like hearing that story, I'm glad that it got handled in a way where Drew did not resolve it himself.
right. Because if people don't know, y'all are brothers, y'all are twins, and y'all are like completely different. I feel
Hey,
like Drew
hey,
will
hey,
pop
hey, hey,
off
hey, wait a minute.
faster.
We ain't that different. Ain't nobody playing your hair either, sis. Let's get the, wait a minute.
Like I
But
just,
no, I get you though. But no, but that's
yeah.
also protection, right? Like sometimes we have to be protected from ourselves in situations because, we know how our loved ones would respond to something.
And I like for that story, Drew, whoever the friend was, like that, I like that
Right,
because you find
right.
sometimes where your significant other isn't around
it was
and
everybody in the house. It was a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy to keep the truth from me. It was like 30
okay,
people in that joint.
But she's referring
right,
to
but I'm saying like
whoever
you
the
Yeah,
was who
yeah.
like
No,
addressed it on your
absolutely.
behalf.
because like with this whole like protecting women, protecting Black women, it's like sometimes you can find yourself in a situation where it's like other guys don't say nothing.
Mm,
Like
Yeah.
and so whoever that person was, like kudos to them because a lot of times they're like, oh, it's not my place, I'm not her man, or they just don't say
Yeah.
nothing. Like
I mean, and I think the guy was inappropriate with his girl as well, right?
he was just an inappropriate person,
Yeah, and so
and
he checked them, and they neglected to tell me the full story.
right.
it's a
Yeah,
And you know what's cool about that though, bro, is that, and that's another part that like I'm always very conscious of, is like there are fools out there. And I'm not going to get caught up in dealing with a fool. Like a fool is a fool. So if I'm realizing I'm with a fool, it's like I can't win. I can't win engaging to a certain degree with a foolish person. So that to me is kind of, I saw maybe a statement saying you want to read it.
so Reese the professional says, hey friends, Sunkiss 216 says agreed. Sometimes you have to protect your partner from themselves. L Eve T Life, facts. And so we are at
I
I'm
got
not
it.
pretty.
So last time it cut off on us, we didn't know.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I mean, I just think that I'm happy to have this conversation because I think it is a little bit nuanced, and I know that I was struggling all week in a lot of the discussions I was in because again, it's like I feel like I'm for what is right at all costs, but I also realize like some of the
So
positions I just couldn't agree with, and I just didn't know why, and I feel like now I'm kind of have a different understanding as to like why I kind of was like I can go up to here with certain things, but it's because across on the other side of that line is actually called something different.
so can I ask a question to the gentleman
Please.
on the screen? So did you when you got into your marriage, your relationship, did you find it difficult to protect? Like, I know, Sam, you mentioned earlier, you moved differently when you were single, but when you became, married, or whenever, like, you've been married forever. So, but like was with a significant other, did you find you had to think about protecting rather it just being second nature?
There was a moment.
Second nature.
I'll let Sam go first.
I mean, you're older, but I mean, it's second nature. I think it's second nature because it's like, you're with a loved one. It's like, it's instinctual. You know what I mean? Like if we're out, we walk in anywhere, I immediately look at the surroundings and how like the surroundings are with you. Like we talk about stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So it is kind of innate. But one of the changes though, I think, since being married and being single is like maybe being more conscious or purposeful on de-escalating if possible. You know what I'm saying? Like that being one of the outcomes, as opposed to when I was single, it's like, it's kind of whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I just figure I'm generally not a wrong-minded person, so I'm not in the wrong, so I'll defend my position. But I think being married, it's like, it's not about just defending my position. You know what I'm saying? Like there's pride there, where it's just like, the change is checking my pride because of my obligation and commitment to protect and provide.
Yeah. I mean, like, to be honest, like, it's I don't even think it's just a question of, single versus married or in a relationship. Like, I used to enjoy losing my temper. Right? It was almost like exhaling, like getting it all off my chest, like blowing up. And it didn't take a lot to get me there, right? And so, like, one of the things that happens when when I go out with my wife, like I'm on high alert go mode. Like I'm probably mean mugging because like I'm like I'm ready. Like I'm just that's just how I am. I'm in protective mode. I'm ready. I like to be on the edge so that if anything pops off, I'm already there, right? And it's just the way I'm wired. Like I don't know if I can help it, right? So like I had a situation where like a dude pulled he cut me off and then he cussed at me in the car, right? Like normally back in the day it would have been all right, we're gonna do this. This is gonna happen, right? And so I started talking back to him, but and it was very aggressive. What I told him is I said, yo, like you don't know me and I don't know you. You don't know what type of day I had. I don't know what type of day you had, right? And you don't know what can push me over the edge. You don't know what can push. I don't know what can push you over the edge. You don't know what I have in my lap right now. I don't know what has you what you have in your lap right now, right? And so at the end of the day, I know we both want to go home. So it's probably in your best interest to just watch how you talk to people, because you don't know what anybody's going through, right?
All this at the red light.
And he said, you know what? You're right. My apologies.
Because he started the conversation. He started talking first. That's fair.
Yeah, because he started it.
It was a teachable moment.
Right.
Teachable moment.
So Eva says, I think the consequences of how you move hit different when you're married.
1000%. Absolutely.
She also got to be more focused on the outcome you want versus how the release makes you feel. Right. So, Drew, you sound like you need to go to kickboxing or something.
No, some days are gone.
What you mean? You just said that you leave on the edge. What you talking about? You said you walk out on the line, right there, like there's the line.
I feel like somebody, hit you with accidentally bump you at the restaurant. Like,
no, I can take all that. But when it comes to protecting those around me, that's different.
Got you. No, that's fair. No, this is dope. Thank you for joining us, bro. Like, this is the first time we've had a guest on Sam's Talk. Again, the conversation was about protection versus retaliation. I wanted to, before we sort of wind down here, because we do want to dismiss before they kick us off. Drew is
so the line is
even that's him, you know him.
Drew, wish that mother would.
The line is right on the other side of the line. That's where the line is at. It's right on the other side of the line.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hit you up with the quote. This is from the late great Nipsey Hussle. You know, for those who don't know, this is the third year of his passing, 3-year anniversary of his passing. But this is a quote that I saw today, and it's actually kind of like it does apply to our conversation. It's my thing is that I don't give no one. My thing is that I don't give no one person that much power over my path that I'm walking. Not one person can make or break what I am doing except me or God. So again, this is I'll leave you guys with a quote from Nip. My thing is that I don't give no one person that much power over my path that I am walking. Not one person can make or break what I am doing except me or God. So it's funny because I think it absolutely applies and is appropriate to what we're talking about, even with retaliation protection. Like, don't let someone get you off your square, man. Like, you know, we know what we're responsible for, you know, what we're obligated to, you know, and there's fools out there, you know, and foolish people will pull you down a rabbit hole. And next you know, you're not home where we need to be, you know, so.
All right. Don't forget to say, I started off saying, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm going to say this
So
one, I promise.
we're going to probably end like 2 minutes early just so that we get this right this time, folks. But no, man. So thank you for joining us for episode number 2 of Sam's Talk.
And don't forget to like our page. We
That's right.
also,
Our page. We're going to post this to our YouTube page. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube page. It's Sam's 2 Community. Drew, thank you for being our first guest.
yes.
So, yes, I'll say until next time, folks.
Stay blessed.
Peace.